Good day, students. It's Mr. Deegan in the D226 VidNotes studios, reporting live. The learning target for Lesson 2 of Unit 2, I will understand how the Renaissance opened up the world to products and ideas, which allowed citizens to challenge the beliefs that were accepted at the time. And in 1300, the Renaissance in Italy is going on, but it is connecting the world. These ideas are being spread out, and some ideas from other places are being taken in. And these trade routes we're going to be talking about today have a lot to do with that. The trade routes open up ideas, and people start thinking outside of their small boxes and their small villages and towns, and they start thinking more worldly. How was the world becoming better connected? By 1500, the end of the Renaissance, regional trade patterns had developed that linked empires in Africa, the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. Make sure you fill in the blanks on your VidNotes. 6 major trade routes. Please write their names beside each bullet point. The Silk routes across Asia to the Mediterranean Sea. The maritime, which means water, routes across the Indian Ocean. And the trans, which means across, Saharan routes across North Africa. And here is North Africa. In orange is where the Sahara Desert is. It is a large, large desert there, and there was a trade route that passed through. The other 3, Northern European routes, links with Black Sea, the Western European sea and river trade, and the South China Sea and lands of Southeast Asia. And where is the South China Sea? Well, southeast of China, right there. Guest teacher right now, Mr. Bird from the internet, he's a Virginia teacher, is going to show you the different trade routes. Your directions, draw and label on your VidNotes the 5 trade routes that he's going to show you on your map. Do that now.
Next, what I want to do is point out to you the 6 major world trade routes that we're going to be talking about and using in World History 2. If you look at the eastern hemisphere of the world here, of course, Europe and Asia and Africa had not discovered the western hemisphere at this point before 1500. So what we're going to do is look at how Europe and Asia and Europe and Africa were able to actually communicate with each other through these different trade routes. The first one is what's called the Silk Road. The Silk Road was very important because it brought goods across the middle of Asia here from China all the way across to the Ottoman Empire, which was kind of the middle of trade in the world. China was known for trading things like paper, the compass, silk, and porcelain. We still talk about porcelain today as China. If you come this way, the Chinese actually used a route called the Maritime Indian Ocean route, and that ended here in the Red Sea, and it also ended over here in the Ottoman Empire. So the Chinese were able to get their paper and their compass and their silk and so on over here to the Middle East by using this maritime or ocean, specifically Indian Ocean trade route. The third trade route we're going to look at linked the Black Sea up here, the Black Sea here with the Baltic Sea up here, okay? And this is called Northern European River Trade, okay? And you can see primarily the product that was brought along here was a product called amber, which is made of a sap, and it is actually a type of jewelry. If you come over here to Europe, Europe is infiltrated with rivers. And so Europe basically traded back and forth across the Mediterranean Sea here and up into Europe by way of rivers. Okay? So if we look at European trade in general, Europe traded down this way out into the Mediterranean, and then they would come across this way and again end up in the Ottoman Empire. You can see this Ottoman Empire, which I am going to put a big O around for Ottoman Empire. You can see their importance in world trade. They were kind of the center of world trade. So medicine and astronomy and knowledge about mathematics and so on moved its way from places like India here into the Middle East. Products from China and so on ended up here in the Middle East, and then products from Europe ended here in the Middle East. So the Ottoman Empire was kind of a center for trade. The Ottoman Empire itself traded things like tile and traded products eventually like coffee. The last of the trade routes that we need to talk about are across North Africa here, and this trade route is very important. It is the trans-Saharan trade because it went trans or across the Sahara Desert, and it connected the Songhai Empire up here to the Ottoman Empire. Again, you can see the importance of the Ottoman Empire in worldwide trade.
Thank you, guest teacher Mr. Bird. You should have now on your map 5 trade routes charted out and labeled. So now you know where they are. There's a 6th trade route that Mr. Bird did not go over, and please draw this and label it now. It is the Southeast Asia and South China Sea trade route. So it starts in China, southern China, and it extends into the Pacific here and some of the Pacific islands. So please draw these lines and label it Southeast Asia and South China Sea, or the South China Sea route. Label that. And why was the Ottoman Empire so important? Write your answer down. Mr. Bird talked a lot about the Ottoman Empire here in the center of it all. Write that answer. Why are these trade routes so important anyway? Please fill in the blanks. They help empires exchange products and ideas, which leads to some groups challenging the status quo of their government or their religion. The status quo being what is the accepted truth. And some of these ideas, like paper, we need paper. It comes from China. And medicines and the compass, these inventions come from the Middle East. Now, here's more on the Italian Renaissance and an Italian Renaissance figure, Leonardo da Vinci.
Why is he a true Renaissance man? He's most famously known as a painter, the painter of Mona Lisa, but he was also a sculptor, an architect, a musician, a scientist, an inventor, an engineer. He did a lot. He was also really interested in the human body, in anatomy. He dissected human bodies to examine the skeletal, muscular, and circulatory systems. In short, he wanted to perfect the human form in art, and he made his paintings very realistic. And the Mona Lisa and the Last Supper show his ideas. We know a lot about Leonardo da Vinci because of his sketchbooks. He maintained many very creative sketchbooks. And I'm going to show you some pages of his sketchbooks that historians have found. Here's a page that tells us he was very interested in human anatomy and the accuracy and beauty of the human body. Here's another sketchbook page from Da Vinci that shows his interest in military vehicles, tanks. He was one of the first people in the world that we know of that sketched an idea for tanks, which weren't used until 400 years later. Flying machines. He was very interested in human flight. and you see some sketches that show early airplanes or early helicopters. Da Vinci was also interested in plants, and the sketchbook shows diagrams of trees and notes that he took. A second master of the Renaissance is Michelangelo, and here he is. Michelangelo, like Leonardo da Vinci, was not just a painter. He was a sculptor, he was an architect, he was a poet, he was an engineer. And he had two famous works that we're going to focus on right now. The Sistine Chapel ceiling, which took him 4 years to complete, and he painted it with famous scenes from the Bible. Also, his statue of David focuses on anatomy and a perfect human form. Here is David. He is a character from the Bible, the story of David and Goliath. And you notice the anatomical elements of this. From 1501 to 1504, Michelangelo sculpted David. And we can check off individuality. We can check off anatomy as two traits. Also, Michelangelo painted this, not on a canvas, but on a wall. This is the creation of Adam from the Sistine Chapel. He painted an entire room in Rome, Italy, from 1508 to 1512 with these types of Bible scenes. You see God giving life to the first human Adam. The Renaissance spreads from the Italian city-states that you see here to Northern Europe. Italy at that time was made up of many states, like the United States, the Papal States, where the Pope lives, the Kingdom of Naples, the Republic of Florence, and so on. So, Northern Europe becomes the place where the Renaissance starts to prosper. North to Germany, to the Netherlands, to Britain. There were many figures in the Northern Renaissance who were influential. One such man, William Shakespeare. He is a writer who returns to themes of classical literature. His many plays show these themes. Macbeth and Hamlet are two such plays. Macbeth shows personal ambition, and Hamlet shows individualism. Shakespeare also creates the sonnet, a special kind of poem. What is a sonnet? Well, it's a specific rhyme pattern that Shakespeare created. Shakespeare also invented words and phrases that we still use today. There are many phrases that we probably don't even realize are from Shakespeare. Here are 20 such phrases and words. And underneath each word, you see the play where the word appears. So thank you, Shakespeare, for some of these words that we still use today. The Northern Renaissance also had a philosopher who thought about the world in a different way. His name was Desiderius Erasmus. He was a Catholic monk from the Netherlands. The Netherlands is located in Northern Europe, northwest of Germany. You see it right here. He famously wrote In Praise of Folly, poking fun at the Catholic Church and some of its corrupt ways. And he supported the idea of humanism. In fact, he was given the nickname the Prince of the Humanists. What is humanism? It's the study of art, literature, history, and philosophy. It's a focus on nature and the interest of humans, not on supernatural, and not so much on the interest of religion and religious leaders. We're almost done. We're rounding the bend, but we need to finish our summary questions. And when you're done with those summary questions, you are finished for today. Next lesson, we will be focusing on Christianity, the history of Christianity, and other world religions, and why this isn't right. Until then, Mr. Deegan, signing off.